Hi everybody, I wanted to give you an overview of the Postural Restoration Institute. As you know, it's my other job as I go around the country and I teach a couple courses. One is called Postural Respiration and the other one is Cervical Revolution. So I've got a little time on my hands during our COVID lockdown. I want to discuss a few things with you regarding what's PRI all about. First off, let's look at context. Let's look at a big picture of the human body. We're born with asymmetries. We can start with our brain. For instance, the left side of our brain has a tendency, we call it a motor tendency, to push us over to the right side of our body. So in PRI, we have this observation that we can even test for, which I'll get to later, called lateralization. We like being on one side of our body more than the other side. And you may notice, just look around, a lot of people love to stand on their right leg. And you also may notice that their right shoulder is a little bit low, they have a little bit of a left bend in their neck, and they love just hanging out there. Nothing wrong with that, but most people aren't aware, our patients aren't aware that they love that side of their body. And typically what happens over time on relying on that side of the body, whether standing or doing sports, that a symptom can arise. It can be pain in the hip, in the back, in the neck. And that's because they're stuck on that side. The issue is, how do we get a person off that side and get them to go to the other side of their body? That's called repositioning. It also is something that feeds into this whole notion of posture. I mean, what is posture? Is posture just standing up straight in a rigid, almost like military position? Actually, it's not. Posture is a very dynamic phenomenon that takes into consideration not just the skeleton and if it's in alignment, but all the systems as well. So in PRI, we look at the body and we say, first and foremost, you're asymmetrical. You've got a brain that loves to take you to the right side of your body, even if you're left-handed. You're still a right-dominant human being. Then you start looking into the chest wall. The chest wall, for instance, you have 3 lobes of lung on the right side, 2 lobes of lung on the left side. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your diaphragm is actually, or has actually, 2 sides to it. And you have a right hemidiaphragm and a left hemidiaphragm, but they're different. They're not symmetrical, they're not the same. The right side, that diaphragm is stronger, it's meatier. It's got attachments that go into the lumbar spine that are actually lower and deeper than the left side of the diaphragm. Now the right side of the diaphragm has this nice dome shape because you have a dome-shaped liver underneath it. But the left side of the diaphragm is flatter, smaller, and its attachments on the lumbar spine don't reach down quite as far. You have heart blood vessels that are center left. That has an effect on your chest wall with these 2 lobes of lung on the left side. You have 3 lobes of lung on the right, as I mentioned. So all of these factors have an influence on position and posture of your entire body. So if we look and we say, okay, how is it that I get on the right side of my body and love to stand here? It's because we're born this way. In PRI, we look and we say, you know, we've observed over time that if you have, for instance, a diaphragm that is bigger, stronger, and domed on the right side, its attachments to the spine have a tendency of turning this whole pelvis to the right. Now, chiropractors, physical therapists, trainers, if you ever wondered what's driving the position of the spine, number one, let's start with one of the major factors, big D, or the diaphragm. And here's what happens. A combination of events in harmony and unison drive us over to the right side of our body with a domed diaphragm. But as that left side of the diaphragm flattens, that left side becomes more engaged, or we call hypertonic, than the right side. as that diaphragm attaches into the lumbar spine from above, from below, the psoas muscle attaches and comes all the way down to the femur, to this what we call lesser trochanter. Okay, here's the effect. Without getting too into the weeds with anatomy, that pelvis on the left side, that actually positions anteriorly. We call that, or forward, sagittal plane in medical speak, rehab speak. But not only that, that anteriorly tipped pelvis then also turns the pelvis to the right, as the pelvis on the other side posteriorly tips or tips back. Now, that's one plane or one direction. We call that the sagittal plane. In the frontal plane, this hemipelvis on the left side will actually AB, duct, and transverse plane, externally rotate. The opposite occurs on the right side. As the pelvis on the right side is going into a posterior pelvic tilt, it is AD, alpha delta, ducting in the frontal plane, as it is internally rotating on that right hemipelvis. So, in essence, the shape of the diaphragm is directing the position of the pelvis. If you have a diaphragm that's flatter or contracted on the left, and a diaphragm that is more relaxed or domed on the right, that will drive us to the right side. Guess what? That is a position called right stance. Nothing wrong with right stance, but in PRI, we like you to be able to balance out your asymmetries and actually reverse that position and get on your left leg. And we have a lot of technical names for that, which I'll get into later. But the fact is, there's a systematic way of doing that. I'm going to back up a little bit and say, what moves a human body? Two things. It's air and chains of muscle. Now there's a chain of muscles that start at your diaphragm. Oh yeah, the diaphragm, when it's contracting and relaxing, is directing airflow into your chest wall. But what happens is we'll start today with one chain of muscles. That chain of muscles starts at the diaphragm on either side. There's a left and a right side of muscles in the chain I'm going to talk about. It's called an anterior, or front, interior, inside, chain of muscles that actually covers many joints, and they all interconnect and interplay and work with each other under the direction of the nervous system. So this chain of muscles starting at the diaphragm, then it goes to the psoas muscle. And you know what's interesting about the psoas muscle? As that diaphragm goes into the lumbar spine from above, and the psoas muscle comes up from below, and those two muscles intertwine with muscle fibers and fascia. It's as if it's one muscle. It's as if you can't tell the difference at that spine from the diaphragm and the psoas. So as the diaphragm goes, so goes the psoas. But wait, there's more. Because not only will the psoas engage or turn on, but the iliacus muscle, and yes, it's two different muscles. It's not the psoas iliacus, it's the psoas and the iliacus. There's the tensor fasciae lata, or we call it the TFL. There's the vastus lateralis that goes down to the lateral knee, and the biceps femoris. And those all work in a chain. Now, typically what happens is that that chain, the left AIC, or the left interior chain, drives us over the right side of our body. Hello? That's one of the things that's taken us over here. Not only that, the shape of the diaphragm, the position of the diaphragm, but especially the shape, directs airflow up into the chest wall. And if that diaphragm is flatter on the left side, that means that the left side of your chest wall is in a state of inhalation more so than the right side of the chest wall, which is in a state of exhalation relative to each side. Even when you take a full breath in, one side will become more inflated than the other side. That's the tendency. But that's the trick of PRI, is being able to determine which side is hyperinflated or more inflated, and to be able to get the air out so you can actually even out the system. Remember, the system's asymmetrical, and we get used to being, well, unconsciously into patterns like standing on our right side and taking a breath in and taking us further into our right side. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but this happens about 12 to 17,000 times a day with every breath you take and every step you make. So, the key is this. In PRI, we have what we call the I word, inhibit. We want to look at and say, let's inhibit that left AIC, a left anterior chain, and let it turn off from pushing us over to the right side so we can turn on the right AIC to help push us over to the left side. Now, that's called being lateralized or over to the right side and getting now pushed back to the left side. We call that alternating. And then we want to go back and forth and back and forth. We call that reciprocating and alternating. And listen, there's nothing wrong with being on one side of your body. It's just that you don't want to rely on that side of your body for stability. You want to be able to find a nice place in the middle that's more, well, neutrality. It's called transition. And it's also called rest for your body. Now, those terms, neutrality, rest, transition, this is what PRI is about. PRI is about testing and seeing what position your body is in, what is the dominant pattern that's driving it there, and then giving you the skills to realign your body. Now, here's the thing. I love adjusting people's spines. I've been doing it for 40 years. And there's a lot of different techniques to adjust spines. But if you don't affect your breathing pattern, affect chains of muscles, then I can keep adjusting you and adjusting you and adjusting you, but your breathing, your habits, your brain will overcome any adjustment I do over time. So I look at adjustments as being the icing on the cake. Not only that, but if I can teach an athlete, a weekend warrior, an 80-year-old grandmother how to find neutral, how to walk, breathe, rest, and exercise, that's really integrating all these different disciplines of rehabilitation, sport performance, regardless of your age. So I'll be talking more not only about the pelvis, not only about how the diaphragm drives which leg you are able to get on. By the way, for golfers, I'm going to be showing you something that's really important for your follow-through and your ability to get yourself on your left leg. If you can't dome that diaphragm, you're not getting on that left leg effectively. You're just going to torque and twist it back. But that's for another day. So thanks for listening to this overview of PRI, and we'll see you again on the next session. Take care.